Okay, so in this episode of Daily Cyber, we're going to be talking about separation of duties and why is it so important to have that in your company for certain processes and procedures that you're doing. So let's hack at it. Okay, so really exciting today. Was looking over some articles and came across one from CNN that Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank was compromised. Now, not her specifically, but an employee from her company. And in the article, it's $400,000, but it actually comes out to $388,000 and some change in US that the company was actually compromised because of, I would call it like a spoofed email address, which is the best way to define it. And what happened was, and you can read the article below, from what I'm getting the gist of it, is that Barbara's assistant, or what looked like was Barbara's assistant, sent an email to the bookkeeper saying, we need you to transfer this money, $388,000, to a company in Germany that seemed like a valid company that we need to work with and we're going to have relationships with, and they need the money in deposit or whatever that may be. And then all of a sudden they transfer the funds to them. And then the bookkeeper then confirmed it like, hey, I just to let you know, I transferred the money, and sent an email to the actual Barbara's assistant. And then what happened was, from what I'm understanding, then she got back and validated, hey, I never did this. I never requested that. What's going on? And then they noticed that the email address, a couple of characters in the email address were not correct. So, and from the original email address requesting the money. So now, from what they are saying in CNN, the investigation now is going to the point where they found out the IP address when they traced the email is now in China. Now they're going through this, investigation and so forth. So now, how does this have to do, or what does this have to do with separation of duties? So separation duties is really kind of a check and balance type process where you have two people that have to authorize one action, one transaction. Just so that what happens is there's not something that can be done, or someone cannot manipulate the system, compromise, someone can't make a mistake because now there's two people doing it, and there has to be collusion in the company. If two people are working it, now they have to work together to do it, and a lot of times you can catch that very quickly. Hopefully when you have your checks and balances on, and then as you have separation of duties and responsibilities of, you have, a bookkeeper, and then there has to be a transfer, then someone else approves the transfer. So someone's actually doing that. Then you can actually approve, like you can check that. Now, having that process in place that, you receive the email, that transfer, then, you're having the process in this situation, which should be the case, is that, I understand people get busy, but there should be some sort of checks and balances, especially larger amounts of transfers. There should be like, okay, we're going to transfer this money just to confirm. If you have to get on a phone call or send them a quick text or whatever that may be to know that it's them, right? And then have some sort of confirmation that, and here's something that I always recommend, that there's an internal code that only the internal people know of the transfers and things like that, that there's a confirmation that, yes, I authorize check number, or I authorize our, and I'm just going to use this as an example, real estate deposit, real estate REX 2375, right? That could be their code to be able to do that, to have that amount transferred. And also now they know, yep, that's that person, that's validated, right? If they get back going, if you get a response back, you send an email and get a response back, what's the code is, 12345. And they're like, what? Okay, you're not the person. Now your alarm should go off. This is not correct. So separation of duty is so important especially when you have critical business transactions and things that need to be done, contracts, legal, financial, what else we look at? systems implementation, employee, anything to do with employee information. All of these things should have checks and balances, that they have separation of duties, and you have kind of like almost like a two-factor authorization for these things to go through, that you have those checks and balances in place. Right? And this is why, we have mandatory vacations, right? And then you have cross training, that when someone else can come in and do their job, they can kind of say, oh, this is not really done right, or something's not right, like it's not working. And then they can find out, like, hey, there's alarms going off saying, okay, you know what, this needs to be addressed when they get back, because something's not right. Now, this is in worst case scenario, and things that to, audit your business and make sure that things are going correctly, but you're doing your due diligence. And I understand one of the mindsets and questions I always get is, do I always have to be that fearful? I want to have trust in my employees. It's not the point that you don't trust them. It's that you want to make sure the business runs efficiently. You want to make sure there's systems in place, that there's audit trails, that nothing can go missing or nothing can go off the rails for too long. And then now there's a massive problem, right? If there's minor problems, minor challenges, we all deal with business, you can catch it right away. And that's what you're doing. And if they don't feel comfortable with that, maybe that's not the person for that position. Right? And tell them, like, it's a high responsibility. It's something that needs to be done. We do this to protect not even just yourself, but to protect the business as well. So these are why these checks and balances are in place. So that's why it's so important when we look at separation of duties, to make sure these duties are separate, but also that you have like multiple factors of authorization. It could be 2, could be more, especially when you look at larger sums of money that's going out. They should be authorized, they should be confirmed, and not just by one email saying, hey, send this money, but there should be some sort of dialogue or communication. Hey, did you send this? Right? And then, and it could be quick. It doesn't have to be a long conversation. I know right now something that is in the conversations more and more is quick 5 to 10 minute meetings, right? Not starting to cut down from the 30-minute to 60-minute meetings to 10, 15 minute meetings, that you go in, you have a few points, you address them, and then you go on. And these can be done over the phone. These can be done over like a Skype or Zoom call, whatever that may be. It's just because so many people are so busy, these types of meetings now are more efficient. So even when you're looking at these transfers, something that could be done, and I'm just throwing out some ideas, is that the transfers could be batched. Right? And say, look, you know what? I want to have a quick meeting with you, next morning. I have these things that I need to just confirm. And then you go through them, check. We authorize this, we authorize this, we authorize this. And then boom, also now, the bookkeeper can go back in and just go through and start transferring those funds, right? So these checks and balances need to be in place. I'm sure Barbara's kind of going like, oh, I wish I would have had them in place. But, these are things that when we see them, we learn from. And as, a collaborative effort in our discussion is, for these incidents, is to be able to look at them, see what the challenges are, and then, really trying to do like as much deep of a dive as we can, and then address it to ourselves, do some self-evaluation. Do you have these systems in place? Do you have these checks and balances in place? Do you have separation of duty in place? Do you have them all? And how is it working? When's the last time you tested, you audited, you changed, when you changed roles, right? Cross-training. When's the last time you did that, to see if everything is running smoothly? Because when someone else gets trained in that position, you start to see, okay, hold on, is it running efficiently? Perfect. If it's not, what's really going on? Is it the process? Is it the training? Do we not have the manual set up properly for training and transference? Is the person that's currently doing the job, are they doing it their own way? Now we need to have it uniform, that it can be transferred to someone else. And this is something we talk about when separation of duties is kind of that hit by the bus scenario. If that bookkeeper is the only one that has the keys to the kingdom to all your financial information, and they walk out and they get hit by a bus, now what? Now what do you do? So this is why you do cross-training and separation of duties, right? Is to make sure that people can step in these roles if need be. Now, knock on wood, like nothing ever does happen to anyone. I mean, I'm not wishing anyone any illness or negativity. Just saying this is just the truth about being in business is you want to have redundancies in place. You want to make sure that you have failovers. So I wanted to cover that today. It was just something that I saw in the news. I thought was very important to discuss. More companies, especially smaller companies, might not have the resources to be able to do this, but I think it's important to have these discussions. I think it's so important to talk about separation of duties, cross training, and these types of areas that they kind of go, okay, in these core responsibilities, operations, financial, HR, IT, what else I'm trying to think, marketing, like any area that you can think of is core to the business functionality, that we have people in place and as their redundancies and things that need to have, confirmation for transactional or tasks, have separation of duties. So there is, two sides of confirmation. So I think it's really important to have that discussion. I love to hear what you think. Comment below. It's so important to kind of get you guys your feedback on what you think of this. Do you have separation of duties? What do you think about it? If you're working or you're a consultant in cybersecurity, are you recommending to your clients that they look at that as best business practices? Comment below. I think it's really important to have that discussion. So just to catch you up on what I'm working on. Last video talked about kind of the videos and what I'm doing with the technology. I went back to my Nikon D750. I just want to give as best video quality as I can. I was testing it like iPad and iPhone, and I sent a message and talked to one of the Apple support people and feedback forums to really kind of talk about the evolution of technology when it comes to cameras, when it comes to phones, when it comes to all that they need to step up their game. And then looking at different types of solutions when you look at video cameras and all that again, you look at, it starts getting costly when you start to look at the quality that you want to get. So that's why I went back to my Nikon D750. So you probably see a different view of what, the image looks like and what the video looks like. So that's just kind of to let you know. What else am I working on? This week's been really busy, interesting. So I've been going to meetings, kind of doing a lot of different things, interviews, had a meeting today, just talking about some technologies, talking about, marketing and different things, and then security. So some great discussions, a lot of things are going on. I had an interview this afternoon, and here's the truth about the cybersecurity industry. The guy that I'm trying to interview is just extremely busy. Clients are needing his services, and it happens. So something to think about if you're in the industry is how much in demand you are for your services, for your expertise, right? And make sure that you kind of balance it out for yourself, because it can, it's a great thing, if that's what you love, but it also can burn you out if you're doing 12-hour days, 6 days a week, 7 days a week. So just something to keep in the back of your mind. Now, don't get me wrong, this guy that I'm interviewing, he's got great work-life balance, all that. I'm just saying, I've seen guys that work long hours. I've seen people that, the company has so much work, they just need their help, and they ended up not taking care of themselves, burning themselves out, and starting to not like what they are doing. And it's so important to have that balance, because I'm sure originally and naturally they got into that role because they loved what they were doing. It was just circumstantial. It became a point where they didn't like it. So something to really look at. Also, I was talking to a colleague today and a friend I've known since high school. Actually, I've known since high school. And he was talking about a colleague of his that just passed away young age. And he was saying that the stress of work got to them, and then he had that heart attack, and then he had a second heart attack, which then he passed away from. So make sure as you're growing, as you're in cybersecurity, as you're doing all these things, make sure you eat right, you take care of yourself, drink really good quality water, and just, make sure you're healthy, because the healthy you are, the more efficient, the more, energized, the more energy you're going to have, the better you're going to be to troubleshoot, the better you're going to be to solve problems, to deal with pressure. And if you're not, you're going to take on that stress, not only just emotionally, but also physically as well. So just keep that in mind. Again, my goal is to educate, to provide, as much knowledge as I can. And I think it's so important. It touches home for me is to stay healthy, to take care of yourself, to do all those things so you can do the things you love and things you enjoy and be around the people you love. So that's it for today's video. I know I'm covering a little bit of information kind of, from separation of duties to kind of some personal stuff that I think is really important to kind of look at the work-life balance and do that. So I just want to leave off. Don't forget, software is hackable. Being connected is vulnerable. I'll see you next Daily Cyber.